Hello everyone, it's Charlton. Please subscribe to my channel. Tap the notification bell. I would appreciate it majorly. And just going to go over this again another time. And the latest report from Justin Lum is about a Chandler detective who sent an email to somebody, we don't know who it is, that was leaked or is one of Justin Lum's sources, that says they're getting close to bringing an indictment against Lori Vallow for her involvement in Charles's death. Okay, and that detective is Nathan Moffat. And he says to somebody, I'm not sure what is meant by this email, but we don't know what that means. We continue to work on Charles's case and are confident we are getting closer to getting Lori indicted for her involvement in Charles's death. My phone is always on, and I am here to answer any questions or discuss any concerns you have. So later in this report, Justin Lum basically speaks to Cheryl Wheeler over the phone, who's the former wife of Charles Vallow, who I think they have I believe two adult sons, maybe three, together, and she comments on it. So I don't know if that's who this person is or if it's Kay Vallow Woodcock or somebody else. It's from March 24th. I think that was Tuesday. Got reported on about 2 days later by Justin Lum. And then he goes on to talk, from a statement given by Sergeant Jason McClymans, who's the Chandler Police Department spokesperson. That's his official job, as well as, I guess, being a detective too, or a sergeant. Who's right here, and he took over that job in, I think, October of 2019. He's probably been with the department longer than that, and I think he's been a police officer for quite some time. He's actually was on the Dateline show. You saw him interviewed. I forget exactly what he said and so forth, but in this report, he gave a statement saying, I don't want to speculate on the content of the email below, as I am not familiar with it and am unable to speak with Detective Moffat. That being said, upon conclusion of any investigation, the case is sent to a prosecuting agency for review and criminal charging. Quite often, the officer or detective will work with the prosecuting agency when this occurs. Because, that is one of my questions I had. But one of why is this detective saying that an indictment they're getting close to an indictment? Normally, that's the prosecutor, that makes that announcement. Every time you have a press conference announcing a big high-profile indictment, it's the prosecutor, because he's the one who brings the indictment, not the detective. But I understand the detective works with them closely as they get close to that, whatever. But what he says here, why is he unable to speak with Detective Moffat? There may be some procedural reason for that. That's just routine, possibly, but I don't know why. I don't see why. They work in the same police department. There's cases ongoing all the time. He's the spokesperson for the Chandler Police Department. Why wouldn't he be able to speak with Detective Moffat on it? On any case. Unless I don't know why. Who knows? Anyways, so how many times have I said this? And this seems to contradict one of the theories I've been sticking with for quite some time, to some extent. That I believe I got this. I have, and it's not just a feeling. There's many different things, many different factors that lead me to believe that that these people have attempted or successfully faked their deaths. I know that sounds insane. And whether it's one or two or all three of them, Charles Vallow, Alex Cox, and Tammy Daybell, or one or two or three, my guess is three, including Charles. I still believe that, man, in spite of this. All right, and part of it. I'm going to go over just a couple of each of the three. Starting with Tammy Daybell. Before I get to Tammy Daybell, even with Charles, okay, Lori Vallow didn't even get Charles's life insurance. Kay Vallow did, okay, and so basically, let's assume Lori Vallow and her brother, or Lori Vallow plotted, with her brother to kill Charles. They killed him for nothing. They didn't get a single thing, unless there's something much bigger going on, which I believe there is. There has to be. But, so they just killed him for nothing, and that's just because they're a bunch of goofballs, or because they, were so stupid that they didn't know he changed his life insurance beneficiary at the last moment, and so they were just like, oh, damn. No, it's not, and so I do think I believe the other two more strongly, but I believe him too, because it just fits with the rest of them. If the other ones fake their deaths, then he did too, basically. Let me go to Tammy, because one of the things, there's been a report, it's been talked about previously, about a police detective from Arizona calling the Rexburg Police Department about Tammy Daybell's death just a few days after she died. Actually, Justin Lum talks about it. So does Lauren Steinbecker from Fox 13 Salt Lake City. Adam Herberts reports on this ton. At some point, she started reporting on it too. This might have been her first report on the case. I can't remember. But in this report, a detective from Arizona calls the Rexburg Police Department and speaks with the dispatch about Tammy Daybell's death and about the autopsy. And there was a report there that the family didn't want an autopsy, and that basically report was out there for a day or so before the Fremont County Sheriff's Department sheriff, I think his name is Fred Humphreys, basically disputed that and said, no, that was the coroner who made that call, not the family. Like, that makes much of a difference. I mean, obviously, if your mother has died at a very young age with no real previous health problems or health issues, in the middle of the night, dying in her sleep, at 49 years old, most family members, would want some answers, and would basically demand an autopsy, or ask for it, irregardless of whether or not. But that call from the detective in Arizona to the Rexburg police department dispatch, and that recorded call, it's not a detective from Chandler, the Chandler Police Department. It's a detective from the Gilbert Police Department. And I don't know. I think that's worth noting. I just do. And in this report, they don't really know exactly, because he says it's connected to a couple of cases that they're working on. One of them is the so-called shooting or assassination attempt of Brandon Boudreaux, which did take place in Gilbert, Arizona, but the shooting death where somebody actually was killed, whether it's in self-defense or not, was in Chandler, Arizona. And the person who was the wife of the person who was shot and killed is the person who's now, involved with the husband of this woman who died, who this detective is inquiring about. So, you would have thought that it would be the Chandler Police Department that made that call, not the Gilbert Police Department. But nevertheless, I can't necessarily go beyond just making that statement right there, because I don't know. But it's odd. Anyways, but and I mean, basically, I'm coming back to I'm trying to illustrate that. I think the reason I believe Tammy Daybell did fake her death is basically because her own kids didn't press harder for an investigation into her death, and haven't really, they may want their privacy, or they may be, just respecting law enforcement in their investigation, but there's been no outrage from them in terms of their mother's death and their father's behavior after her death. And it kind of got forgotten, this whole report about Tammy Daybell and this weird incident 10 days before, 10 days before she died, where she posted it on her own Facebook page, which, it's her children are friends with her. It's a Facebook page. Her children are seeing this. This is 10 days before she dies. She describes this weird incident where somebody, with a black mask or ski mask shows up as she's unloading groceries out of her car in her driveway, and she believes it's a paintball gun. Kay Vallow later said she thought it was a gun with a silencer, very similar to, like a gun with a silencer pointing out of a rear Jeep Wrangler in the Brandon Boudreaux so-called assassination shooting attempt. But if this happened 10 days before your mother died mysteriously in her sleep with no previous health complications at age 49, wouldn't you, if you were her children, wouldn't you want, wouldn't you basically demand an autopsy? And wouldn't you be extremely suspicious? Of course you would. And I'm actually, I don't think I'm not necessarily calling her family cold blooded or just the opposite. Because I think the reason they're not as concerned is because I believe she's not really dead. I mean, it's so crazy, but I really do think that. And then, obviously beyond her death, their father's behavior with Lori and everything else. Even if they were to say, well, Lori was going to be his new wife, and she was going to see him through life, and that's what Tammy Daybell would want. Okay, fine. But what about this? What about this so-called, attempt on her life, possibly, that she described in her own Facebook page in her own words? This wouldn't spike her kids' suspicion, and then which would maybe make them want the autopsy report. So, I mean, that's my justification, among other things, many, many other things. The fact that she worked for the city parks department in Springville, Utah, basically entering burial records, thousands and thousands of them. It was one of her passions. That's what's described in her obituary. That Chad Daybell worked for the Evergreen cemetery, as well as another cemetery in Springville, Utah. And Evergreen Cemetery is the cemetery she was brought back to, where she was buried at. And supposedly, I think Chad Daybell's one of his brothers worked at a cemetery, both digging graves for a number of years at different times in their life, in their young life. When they were young adults. Well, at one point when he was still finishing college, I think at another point either after that or before that, I can't remember which. There's many, many other factors, but just the lack of not wanting answers on your mother's death it just doesn't make any sense, And I think the reason for that is it's actually not even so cold-hearted, is because my conclusion is because she's not dead. I know I just repeated myself, but nevertheless. So, that's I don't want to go over this again and again. I will do it one more time. And this, there's many other things with the Alex Cox death that basically if any one of the three faked their deaths, I believe the other two did too. And I've pointed out the neck and just the build and the face, man. It's just not the same dude to me. I just don't think that's the same guy. And that to me, obviously the quality of the picture's not that great, but that doesn't seem like the same dude to me. So, in terms of this report of bringing an indictment, even in this report, Cheryl Wheeler, Charles Vallow's former wife, says that she could be indicted. That's one thing, but a conviction's another. And I've said multiple times that we've heard from many, many different family members and given their version of events and have their take on what's going on. And I've said that I haven't heard one person that I believe was telling the truth, and I stand by that completely. I haven't heard a single family member that I thought was telling the truth and being truthful. But that particular statement, I agree, because that's the outcome they want. They know she's going to be indicted, and it could be or could be indicted, but will never get convicted. I mean, she's not even the one who pulled the trigger. All she did was leave. There's almost no crime there. Unless they literally retrieve Alex Cox one day, or Charles Vallow, or Tammy Daybell, and then there's something that else. Even with that, I mean, there's fraud and stuff like that. But when you think about it, that the pinning down actual physical, crimes that they've committed, if the two kids are alive, which I believe they are, um, they're not that extreme, and they've chosen their crimes, ones that they've basically, allowed themselves to be, like Melanie Cox, Melanie Boudreau, Brandon Boudreau's ex-wife, or Lori Vallow's niece. She was arrested for trespassing, which is a misdemeanor. It's totally nothing, you know, which is, I mean, the surveillance footage of Tammy Daybell, not Tammy Daybell, excuse me. There's so many people. It's impossible to keep all the names straight. Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell going to the Rexburg, Idaho storage unit on October 2nd, when supposedly, Brandon Boudreau believes he was being shot at by Alex Cox in the Jeep Wrangler, which is the Jeep Wrangler that's, Charles Vallow's old Jeep Wrangler that's registered to him. That's October 2nd, This is from October 9th. So that's 7 days. That's 1 week, exactly 1 week before Tammy Daybell says some man in a black, something really weird just happened. I want you to know so you can watch out. I had gotten home and parked in our front driveway. As I was getting stuff out of the back seat, a guy wearing a ski mask was suddenly standing by the back of my car with a paintball gun. He shot at me several times, although I don't think it was loaded. I yelled for Chad, and he ran off around the back of my house. I have no idea what his motive was, and he never spoke, even after I asked him several times what he thought he was doing. I was about to smack him with my freezer meals from enrichment tonight, when I decided to yell for Chad instead. So, I mean, these things are so ridiculously absurd. Okay, like if Chad and Lori were planning on killing Tammy Daybell, like, they would have done this in advance to make themselves look 1,000 times more suspicious. And not only that, and I guess we're supposed to believe that that's Alex Cox in the black ski mask with the gun that maybe is a paintball gun, or maybe is a gun with a silencer that's either misfiring or jamming, or just he's shooting it without any bullets in it. Who the hell knows? But, this is October 9th, October 2nd, a week before that. Supposedly he's in the back of a Jeep Wrangler, pointing a gun, a rifle this time, with a silencer on the end of it. I assume it's a rifle, supposedly shooting at Brandon Boudreau, and only, what is that, 3 months earlier, 2 months earlier, 3 months earlier, July 11th, Charles Vallow is shot and killed. If it was Charles Vallow, or it's absolutely insane. It's insane, absurd. Nobody would do things this stupid, basically making themselves look ultra as guilty as possible. No way. And I don't think it's for insurance money, even though they get insurance money. They're not doing this, and it's for some much, much bigger thing. And I don't know what it is. I really don't. I have a hunch of what it is, and it involves drugs, and it involves ripping off people that you don't rip off. And if you did rip them off, they would kill you. And the only way they wouldn't kill you is if they thought you were dead. Something like that, and where the dollar amounts are in the tens of millions, many millions. I don't know, though. Who the hell knows? It's complete madness. I do think they fake their deaths, though. That's what I believe. And I think I'm right. And that's the story there, man. That is the story there. Thanks for watching my videos. Please subscribe to my channel. Give me a like down below. And I'll see you in the next video. Later, man.